It is Tuesday, September 25th. It may be Comey Indictment Day. It is 8 o'clock
Did you say
a.m.
Tuesday? It's Thursday.
It's Thursday. Sorry. Sometimes the days all run together. The sun really, guys, is not shining today. It is pouring rain in Washington, D.C. You may hear the rain in the background because I love rain. And so I left the door of the hammock studio open so you can hear the pitter patter of rain. No, it is not a professional studio where you try to isolate sound. Again, this is just one of those revolutionary features of Dog Shirt TV. It is where I live. It's not trying to go, the goal here is not perfect production values. That's why you also see the glint off my forehead. There's no powder, like this to make sure that my light doesn't shine off of me. We're not angling the ring light so that you don't see it in we're not going for production values here. We're going for mocking the situation with puppies. That's what we're doing today because world, fuck off. The sun is not shining. The birds are not chirping today, but it is going to be a great freaking day. And why cactuses?
You're watching Dog Shirt TV, a forking revolution in morning television.
You are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is a bleeding ulcer of a revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features, of which there are many, is that Holly is wearing a sweatshirt we have never seen before.
I wore it yesterday.
Yeah, but I didn't notice it yesterday. So it is a sweater that we have never seen before on Dog Shirt TV. It is the RVA Kijabe sweatshirt, and I have a Rift Valley
Academy,
yeah. Which is the high school or the boarding school that she went to, where she was.
I did go take K through 12, but it does go K through 12.
Wait, say that again.
It goes K through 12. Although I went 6 through 12. So.
I see. And another one of the revolutionary features is that sometimes things get so dark that the only solution is a puppy, a really kitschy, schmaltzy. And Holly did not know the evolution of the word, the derivation of the word schmaltzy.
You're admiring my hood. So.
Which comes from the Yiddish word for chicken fat. I think all Jews know that, and no non-Jews know that schmaltz is chicken fat.
Lior says it's goose fat.
It can be any poultry. It's in the United States, we're generally talking about. Linda says wrong about that. I don't know what she thinks is correct, but maybe yeah. So
bird smackdown.
It can be ducks. Yeah, it can be goose, but it's the key point about it is not butter, and so it can be used with meat without violating the rules of kashrut. So this is a schmaltzy. Well, Linda, if you want to correct me about schmaltz, feel free. Anyway, it's a schmaltzy shirt. It's a kitschy shirt. And that's all I have to say about the subject. It's, folks, let's just be honest. We're not allowed to have fun anymore. but we
But
are
we're allowed to
allowed.
argue about what bird fat schmaltz is derived from.
Yeah, I'm not getting in an argument about this. There's no doubt that chicken fat is an argument. There's no doubt that chicken fat is schmaltz. Other birds can contribute to schmaltz as well if they give their lives for it. Um, Folks, we're not allowed to have fun anymore, but we are allowed, I guess, to talk about, uh, um, Jim Comey getting indicted, assuming that happens. But first, really important development in the Zambian criminal justice system because they had an attempted assassination in Zambia. And Holly is here to tell you all about it, how it happened, the mode of the assassination attempt, which I don't know, Stephen Miller really needs to worry about right now that things like this might be tried in the United States. So, Holly, what happened in Zambia, and what do we need to know?
Okay, so this was an attempted wizard assassination, which is apparently against the law. It's against the law, apparently, in Zambia and two other countries in Africa to attempt to use witchcraft to kill someone. And in this case, two individuals have been tried and sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for attempting to assassinate the president of Zambia, Hichilema, or HH, as he's known colloquially, HH, via witchcraft and wizardry. And they, so their weaponry included a live chameleon, a red cloth, and a white powder. It does not say what kind of white powder that is, but apparently there was a high court ruling in 2020 that said witchcraft accusations require demonstrable harmful outcomes, not mere possession of traditional items. But the court has ignored the 2020 high court ruling, much as our Supreme Court has ignored
Lower
the
court
Constitution, the lower courts, and some of the Constitution. And these individuals are going to jail for attempting to assassinate via witchcraft and wizardry.
Now, I have a lot of questions about this.
Yeah, I just have to read the magistrates from the magistrates ruling. Quote, had the convicts executed their mission, it could have caused the death of a head of state within 5 days.
All right. I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
So first of all, is the president of Zambia okay?
He's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so this is just an attempt situation.
It says that the caption there's a picture of HH, the president of Zambia. He's called HH. Hakainde Hichilema is his actual name, HH. Appears to be safe from source. His picture looking alive, and the caption says, "Charmed. President HH appears to be safe from sorcery and arcane assault for now."
and we've elapsed 5 days, so
apparently.
So
yeah.
it's not like we're on day 3 and we need to be like we were on Rapture Watch the other day.
I think he's okay. They were paid. Also, they took $85,000 or the equivalent in kwacha by the brother They were paid by the brother of one of HH's political rivals to carry out the ritual. There's no word on what has happened to the brother. But I would say the
Interesting.
brother should be like legitimately tried because, I mean, so the mode of assassination is maybe not legitimate,
But
but
he
he
still
clearly
did try
paid
to
someone
procure an
to try to kill
assassination.
someone.
Yeah.
The intention, I mean, you're the legal expert. Isn't the intention there? Like if in the United States, if someone paid someone to kill another person with witchcraft,
See,
would that be illegal or not?
that's a really interesting question. I think the answer is no, it wouldn't. Um, but I
Okay,
am
what if let me back up. What if a person, let's say Joe paid Paul to kill Peter and didn't specify how, and then
notice that Holly is only using names of disciples here. Or
I
the,
mean, they're very popular names. So let's I so what if Paul then decided, "Oh, well, I'm going to do it using witchcraft."
no. So
Um,
okay, let's distinguish between a certain thing.
would you still
If
charge Joe?
if I pay somebody to kill you,
Uh-huh.
and notice how I have left the land of early Christianity and I am now just attacking Holly. Um, um, that is a criminal offense. Procuring somebody's, um,
Like
uh,
method regardless.
well, presumably, when I did it, I didn't intend that somebody use a method that is actually impossible to kill somebody with, right? I merely procured your
Thank
death.
you.
Um, but unbeknownst to me, the hitman is a charlatan and a witch doctor
Yeah.
and decides to do it by means of magic. I think the answer is I am guilty and the hitman is not.
That's what I'm
Um,
saying. That's what I
and but I'm not sure. There could now the hitman may also be guilty of fraud because he took money to off you and then used a method that is simply impossible to work. But his subjective state of mind might matter here. Apparently, not under.
Ambien law.
Yeah, John Hawkinson's point in the chat is I would be not guilty if I specified killing with wizardry and only with
That's
wizardry.
what happened in this case.
Yeah, now
but in
I
Zambia,
think
that's apparently still on the books.
I think under those conditions, you might have a defense. It's not a legal defense, by the way. It's a factual defense that I was merely engaged in cosplay. There's no. It's impossible to kill somebody with, a wet noodle, and so therefore I can't possibly be guilty. I don't think that's, by the way, I don't think it's a legal argument. I think it's a my actions do not meet the I did not in fact attempt murder, right? I attempted a a ritual. Now, the hitman's subjective state of mind might matter. For example, imagine the hitman actually believes in that this stuff will work.
Which I think they probably did. Yeah. I mean, I don't know though. Maybe not. In this case, the guy paying them, the guy funding the operation believed in the witchcraft and asked them to do the witchcraft. They may have just been going through the motions to appease him.
Right.
It's a complex case.
Yeah. Look, it is it is not a complicated case under U.S. law. Maybe a complicated case under Zambian law. Apparently, it is.
I don't know that it's not complicated under U.S. law if the funder did not specify the means.
Correct. That
murder.
is not complicated.
Yeah. I don't think that's.
Look, if you hire Luca Brazzi to make sure that somebody sleeps with the fishes, and Luca Brasi chooses to use witchcraft
chameleon.
unbeknownst to you,
Yeah.
you're still guilty of conspiracy to commit murder.
Yeah. I think that's
All right, moving on from the subject of
witchcraft and
assassination
wizardry.
with witchcraft and wizardry to the subject of the good news and bad news about democratic elections in Malawi.
Oh, I thought you were going to say moving on to the Comey indictment, which is kind of
we're
a
dealing with
witchcraft and
this is an
wizardry
Africa
situation.
First Day. We're dealing with. We're
I
not
think
taking
the
the
segue is good,
situation too seriously that we're putting it first. There will, as T.S. Eliot says, there will be time. There will be time. There will be time to discuss. Time for me and time for you and time for Jim Comey. We're going to get to that. But we've got a Malawian election.
Yeah, so this is amazing. I mean, it's not that unusual, frankly, in Africa, where presidents come in and out of power, and and then family members run for president. And this basically every presidential election is a rerun of previous presidential elections. That's actually quite common in Africa. So that's what we have here. So they had a presidential election last week between the current president, Chikwera, and a former president, Mutharika, and who is 85, by the way, and a Yale educated lawyer, and he had a whole academic.
Watch out for those.
He had a whole academic career as a
like you end up with President Scott Shapiro.
Scholar. Yeah, he was an academic and law professor, and really should have stuck with that. But he got drug into politics some time ago because his brother, Bingu Mutharika, became president and appointed him to his cabinet. And then that's when he got all up in the politics and sullied himself. And then when his brother died in office, this is in 2012. So Bingu Mutharika, President Bingu Mutharika, died in office, just like heart attack or something. He was like 78. Bingu had chosen a woman, a out of left field vice presidential pick from a different party to seem all like bipartisan and enlightened woman. She was a civil society activist, Joyce Banda. So he picked her as his vice president, not intending to die in office. But then he died in office, and then Joyce Banda, according to the Constitution, was supposed to become president. But Peter Mutharika, the brother, and the other cabal in Bingu's cabinet, Peter was supposed to succeed him, and they were in the process of arranging all of that when Bingu died. So they put Bingu on a plane. They kept his death a secret for like multiple days, I think. And they basically flew him around Africa to play. I don't know. They put him on a plane and like flew the body around. It was amazing. And then eventually it became apparent that Bingu had indeed died. And then they tried to just like shove Joyce Banda out, but she wouldn't go. And then anyway, long story short, she became the president, and Peter Mutharika, the brother, was out in the cold. So then the next time there was an election, he ran, okay? And he won, and he became the president in 2019. And he sucked because they all suck. And then he was defeated by Chikwera the last election. And so instead of retiring, because why would you do that when you're like 85 years old and you don't need this at all? He ran against Chikwera, and now he's the president again. So the good news is Chikwera has conceded the election, and actually Malawi's had multiple changes of power now. Right. It's actually pretty good on the democracy front on that score, which we should not take for granted, given that not our last one, but the previous one before the last one was not a peaceful transfer of power. So that's good, but an 85-year-old ex-president who has
a bit of an undemocratic history.
Yeah. So, although none of them do, really. I mean, I think Chikwera was okay. Chikwera had bad luck. The economy tanked. COVID. He came into office in 2020, was immediately hit with COVID. and the economy tanked. So I think
Well,
he
I have this to say. We need to study these cases because this is our future. You know, Trump dies in office and they put his body on Air Force One and
yeah
circle it around
yeah
while they figure out what to do about JD Vance. Easy to laugh at this, and you get an assassination attempt by
by
witchcraft.
none of it is that
It's
crazy
not that
sounding.
far from
No, it's
our,
not.
and so, we used to laugh at this shit, but don't laugh, guys, because it is your future.
Yeah. I mean,
And
certainly the
speaking,
85-year-old and the president's coming back. Like I don't know. Like I think Trump will probably run again.
well,
He's
I don't know
alive.
about that. I don't do the future. The present is hard enough.
It's
Um,
plausible he will. That's
so
enough.
um, uh, let us talk about the apparently forthcoming indictment of Jim Comey, about which there is conflicting information. And let us say that there is conflicting information for a very simple reason, which is that Lindsay Halligan has no idea what she's doing.
She's
And
another legal Barbie. I call them legal
well,
Barbies.
she is a legal Barbie, but she's also got and let's feel for the legal Barbie in this situation, because the legal Barbie was put in her role for one reason and one reason only, which is to kill somebody by witchcraft. Um,
Basically, yes. I was
yeah,
gonna say. Basically. But
they
she didn't have to do it. I have no sympathy for any of these people.
well, no, no, no. Come on, Holly. Where's your Christian charity? This is a woman who was offered a hard job and out of patriotism took it. And the condition of the job is that you indict Jim Comey. And she doesn't have any experience that would be relevant to that. Unlike Jim Comey, who, by the way, was an assistant U.S. attorney, U.S. attorney, a deputy attorney general, and the director of the FBI. He was also acting attorney general in a crisis moment involving the rule of law. Forget about all of that. She's unlike that. This is a insurance lawyer who has never really been involved in prosecuting any case. And so it's a very hard situation for her. Oh, and by the way, she has now 5 days to get it done.
Barbie
And
can
so,
do anything. You know, didn't you? I mean, didn't you see the ads in the 80s? Barbie can do anything, Ben.
I think it's more
Barbie
of
can
a,
go
I
into
can do
space.
all things through Christ who strengthens me.
That
Um,
too.
yeah. So
And she has a chameleon and a red cloth and white powder.
yes. So she's got a hard job. And oh, here's the other thing that nobody's saying in public, but that everybody knows is true. Jim Comey is a fucking Boy Scout. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that people don't like Jim Comey. Some people
Was he
blame him
really
for,
like a literal Boy Scout? I wonder.
I don't know if he was a
I bet he
literal Boy
was.
Scout, but he's like the one thing people don't like him because he got Trump, allegedly got Trump elected. People don't like him because he did because he ran the Russia investigation. People don't like him because he spoke truth to Trump. People don't like him because he's really too tall, and he really is tall. Take it from a
Like
short
9 feet
person
tall.
who has to be on a stage
Where do
with
you
him
reach
sometimes.
Jim Comey? Like chest?
I do not reach shoulders quite. Maybe I reach shoulders.
So you could like fit nicely under his armpit?
If
Maybe
he
not.
wanted to use me as deodorant,
Okay.
it could
As like
it
a
could happen.
coffee at an
No,
end table?
it's really bad to be on a stage with Jim Comey as a short person. I get it. I get that. The one thing that nobody believes about Jim Comey is that he's a liar. And so you are Lindsay Hannigan. Um, and you have to indict Jim Comey, and it has to be for lying under oath, because that's the only thing that the statute of limitations hasn't run on. So you've got to indict him in 5 days, and it has to be for, false statements under oath. It's harder than killing the president of Zambia by witchcraft.
What about, so I know they filed in the grand jury will be in either Norfolk or Richmond, is that right?
The word on the street is that, the Comey height situation it's
Honestly,
genuinely. I'm a short guy. I'm 5'6".
No offense, but he's freakishly tall.
I am not, as a general matter, I'm not self-conscious about being short. I'm short. It's fine. Whatever. I don't like short people who have short people complexes bother me. You're really aware of being short when you're standing next to Jen or sitting next to Jen, as Kate rightly points out.
He's freakishly tall. I don't think you want to be that tall, to be fair. Like as a woman, I'm 5'9", which for a woman is pretty tall. It's not like crazy tall, but it's pretty tall. And I feel awkward around really short people that I tower over. It makes me feel awkward. I don't think they should feel awkward. I feel awkward.
Richard, Jim is considerably taller than Scott Anderson. Scott Anderson, big guy. Donald Trump, big guy. By the way, I do believe that one of the reasons that that Trump hates Comey so much is that Comey is taller than him. But that's just a sneaking suspicion. Anyway.
Probably. Yeah. But back to the indictments. So the grand jury will be in either Norfolk or Richmond. Is that
okay?
Right?
Here is what we've been able to piece together. The grand jury is so the first of all, the alleged crime, whatever it may be, and to this day, nobody has put forward a theory of what the crime is. To the point, I'm going to get back to your venue question in a second, but I want to show you all just how I think the technical term is seriously fucked up. This is. Let's all take a look at the headline. Whoops. Let's all take a look at the headline here. Newly appointed U.S. attorney will attempt to charge James Comey despite prosecutors finding no probable cause. Now, that is one of the very oddest headlines I have ever read. It's a little bit like doctors diagnose kidney cancer in patient with no kidneys. If you don't have probable cause, you cannot ask ethically or appropriately or even rationally a grand jury to indict. So leave aside the fact that they have no idea. We're 5 days out from the running of the statute of limitations, and Lindsay Halligan, her prosecutors acknowledge that they don't have probable cause to seek an indictment. Kate asks the critical question, which is this cause for disbarment? And the answer to that is, it is almost certainly cause for attorney discipline. Yes. But
whatever, she'll have a job at Mar-a-Lago. She'll do legal advising Barbie. So
yeah, it is. You would have to have a mechanism for that, and because grand jury proceedings are secret, it is not clear how the bar would become aware of that, unless somebody leaked the Pross memo. Hint, 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 hint. In which case, that could be the basis for it. The chief judge of the relevant court could also intervene if he or she knew about it and say, read ABC News, hint, 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 hint. But, you do have to have some mechanism for that. Okay, so first question, given that the alleged crime, whatever it was, took place in Washington, D.C., right? This was a Senate Judiciary Committee. And so the first question is, why are we in Virginia at all? And the answer seems to be that this hearing took place during COVID, and Comey appeared remotely by Zoom. He does live in Northern Virginia. And so perhaps that is a theory by which we get from the District of Columbia to Virginia. Okay, second question is Northern Virginia, for those who are not from the DMV, Northern Virginia is
different country.
Is 2.5 hours from Richmond and about 4 hours from Norfolk.
And several decades ahead in modern life.
Yeah. It's a different
mentality,
it's a different world.
They have electricity. Well,
it's not,
in Virginia, they don't.
Not a different world from Richmond, exactly. Richmond is but Norfolk is a military town. It's a Navy town. It's
although it's heavily black.
Well, is Norfolk or is Hampton Roads heavily black?
Oh, it may be Hampton, but I think Norfolk's pretty black too. So that could be an issue.
So
although they don't like, here's finish and then I'll say.
All right. So the first question is, how did we get to Virginia? The second question is, how and why did we get to Richmond area or Norfolk? And the answer there is clearly an effort to avoid the DC or DC area jury pools and grand jury pools. And that is frankly removing something from a jurisdiction because you prefer a different jury pool for a crime you can't identify. That's quite abusive thing to do. We generally frown on that. But here is the bigger point. And I want to express confidence in the people of Norfolk, Virginia, and Richmond, wherever they bring this. I don't believe it is possible that you can get an indictment. And I'll tell you the reason. I wouldn't be surprised if they could get an indictment, because in any congressional testimony where there is a voluminous record, if you present to the grand jury a purely hearsay case, right? It is, hey, here's some documents that seem to contradict the testimony. You may be able to convince a group of grand jurors. This is, it's not like a video of an ICE arrest, right? Where the grand juries are like, wait, what are you freaking kidding? She didn't attack the ICE officer. The ICE officer attacked her, right? This is a situation where there's a complex record behind each and every statement that they could possibly use. And so you're, if you present only the evidence that's in tension with the statement, well, then you can convince people that there may be probable cause for an indictment, but it melts when you actually have to go to trial. Here's what I want to say. I have total confidence in any jury pool in the country that, like, I've been through this record as carefully as most people have, as anybody has, I think. I actually spent some quality time with it over the last few days. I wrote a long piece on lawfare with the estimable Anna Bauer, whom I roped into it as it got more and more voluminous over the last couple days. Yes, guys, I worked on Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, I mean, scandal. There is no jury in the United States that you could present any of these cases to that is going to convict. Now, okay. At least not a jury that would observe its oath. And there's a reason for that.
That's the key thing. See, I actually think they've miscalculated. They've clearly gone to venues where they think they have a advantage politically. But I think they may be miscalculated because honestly, I there's not there's not many people who hate Jim Comey more than progressive Hillary Clinton stands. And so I think they should have gone to the most liberal venue that they could possibly find. Actually, Washington probably wouldn't be liberal enough. They would need to file it somewhere like in Cambridge or something like that, where John Hawkinson is. Maybe up there, or what is the most liberal district in the country? Or San Francisco. There you go. San Francisco, something like that. Like go super super lefty progressive. I think those folks would indict Jim Comey for just
Yeah, but I don't know if they're going to indict Jim Comey over the Russia investigation.
I don't they just hate him. So does it matter? Just like I mean Trump is doing this cuz he just hates him. So
Yeah, so I have no opinion about that. I will say that I'm really confident that Jim did not lie under oath. I'm not. Usually when you say that, what you mean is if there are errors in the testimony, they're not intentional, or they're not on a point of material fact, right? I actually mean something else. I've been over Jim's testimony, and I don't think there's anything incorrect in it. Most of that testimony is just them expressing opinions at him and him saying, I reject the premise of your question, or them asking his opinion. A lot of it is Democrats asking him his opinion about ongoing Russian efforts to help Trump. And there aren't that many facts that he testified to. And in order for a case even to get to a jury, you would have to show that there's a material question of fact about, like there's a material factual question about whether something that he testified as a factual matter is true. And by the way, folks, remember that literal truth is an absolute defense. And so the wording of the question matters a lot. So, for example, one of the things they're going to try to do, or that they may try to do, there's this question, and I want to read it precisely because the wording of the question matters. So, this gets cast as, and this question was actually asked 8 years ago at a hearing in a different hearing, but then 5 years ago, he stood by this testimony in the relevant hearing. And it often gets reported as he never authorized any disclosures of classified information. That's the way the press sometimes characterizes it. But that's not the question. The question is, Charles Grassley asks, Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? Comey, never. Grassley, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? Comey, no. So in order for that to be perjury, you would have to have an authorization by Trump for somebody who is at the FBI, not merely to give information, but to do so anonymously. This is not something that the FBI director typically manages, right? Oh, and Holly, when you talk to the New York Times, make sure you're anonymous. And the subject of the news report, notice it doesn't mention classified information, has to be either the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration. And the person has to be at the FBI. Well, guess what? Famously, one of the conduits for information was Dan Richman, who is a professor at Columbia Law School. He's not at the FBI. He was a special government employee at one point, but I don't think he was at the relevant point. Famously, another one of the conduits of information is me, right? I am quoted, both Dan Richman and I are quoted by name in stories.
By name.
And Jim never authorized me to do it at all, actually. But it's not an anonymous thing. What I did, I went to Mike Schmidt and said, yo, I have information for you. Come to my office. He came to my office, and I insisted on talking on the record. And so, it is kind of thing that it is easy to look at a story and say, and by the way, when Jim was testifying that, I think in May, he was fired in May, he was testified later in May. And when he talks about telling a friend to, give the contents of a certain memo, the loyalty oath dinner memo, to the New York Times reporter, Mike Schmidt. And Senator Collins bursts out ebulliently, was that Mr. Wittes? And Jim gets all flustered and confused for a minute because it wasn't me, it was Dan Richman. And he said, no, it was a different friend. And so, there's it is super easy to look at a sentence like that and say he's lying. But he wasn't lying. And he wasn't lying about me. And he was not lying about Dan Richman, who, by the way, I am not, for some reason that I'm not sure, and I'm a little insulted about it, that I am not at issue in this case at all, whatever this case may be. But Dan, who is a good friend of mine, and
get called to testify, man.
Look, I'm pissed off about it. If there's going to be a trial of Jim Comey, I want to testify because we had some freaking funny interactions, and I think a jury would get a kick out of hearing from me. Dan's a funny guy. Would you wear
a dog shirt in court?
I would.
Oh my gosh!
Well, it depends who called me.
Yeah.
If I were called by Jim, I would wear a suit, of course, because I wouldn't want to. But if the prosecution called me, absolutely, I would wear a dog shirt.
I think that's fair. Hey, so couple questions on the grand jury. All right. So how many people? First of all, how many people are in a grand jury?
23.
23.
Yeah.
Does indictment? How many have to vote for indictment?
Majority.
Just the majority. Okay, so 20.
And you need, but you don't need all 23 for a quorum. I think you need 15, 16 for a quorum.
So you need 16 votes. And then...
No. You need 16 present. 15 or 16. I can't remember what the number is that you need present.
And then you need the majority of those present.
Correct.
Okay. And then also, could a judge just throw out this case before it even goes to a grand jury?
Well, no, you can't throw out a case before it goes to a grand jury because Carol has a correction.
Right. You need 16 as a quorum for a grand jury. And regardless of how many people are there, you
still need
votes.
13 for an indictment.
Okay.
13 to indict.
Okay.
All right. So
I've
thank you,
done that
Carol.
twice recently. So.
And was that in a federal grand jury?
I did one DC Superior Court and one federal.
Okay. Federal practice will be uniform on this. So
Federal
Excellent. Thank you.
They were both the same. Okay, bye.
So, look, I mean, I completely forgot your question, Holly.
Can a judge throw out?
Oh, a judge can throw it out, but not before a grand jury seeks to bring an indictment, because there is no case until then. And so you have to have a document that can be assessed. But if, you know, an indictment has to state an offense under federal law. And so one possibility is that the question is factual, right? The deficiency of the indictment is factual, in which case you don't necessarily know that by reading the indictment. And that's what I would expect to happen in a false statements case. Because, you know, there won't be any doubt that Comey said X, right? Well, yeah, the transcript reflects that Comey said X. So then there's an allegation that X is false. Comey knew it was false and intended to mislead. It's not accidentally false, right? It's intentionally false. And number three, it was on a point of material fact. Now, all of those are contextual. Comey can say, well, no, I didn't know it was false, or no, it wasn't false, or no, it was on a trivial, non-material point. But it was not, but how would you know that from the mere text of the indictment? If the indictment is facially deficient, i.e. it does not state a claim under any statute, well, then, yeah, you can dismiss it. Then you would see a motion to dismiss. I think you're actually going to see something else. And I say this, I want to stress, without insider knowledge of any kind. If I were Jim, and Jim is represented, I assume in this, by two superb lawyers, Pat Fitzgerald and David Kelly, I would just invoke the Speedy Trial Act and force it to trial as quickly as you humanly can, take the stand, and embarrass them. And I think you can call it the anti-Netanyahu approach, right?
Or Trump approach.
Right. Now, Andrew says televise it. Hopefully that will not happen because there's no federal courts do not have a cameras rule. And yes, Devin, it is the Patrick Fitzgerald, former U.S. attorney in.
That's Comey's cousin?
Not his cousin. Here is the Comey lore background. So Jim Comey, Pat Fitzgerald, David Kelly, and Dan Richman, who may be a fact witness here, were all assistant United States attorneys in the Southern District of New York together. They are very, very fast friends. And Comey, when he was Deputy Attorney General, was responsible for Pat Fitzgerald, who was then the U.S. Attorney in Chicago, becoming the special counsel in the Scooter Libby matter.
I know it all coming back to me.
So the troika of David Kelly, Pat Fitzgerald, and Dan Richmond have always been have always been Comey's legal team, and of course Dan is now conflicted out because his conduct in his role as one of Comey's advisors is now at issue in the investigation. So he's conflicted out, and obviously, presumably, I assume, can't be representing Jim, but I assume the other two will. And I would just say they are. I can't imagine they will not handle this very aggressively, because among other things, Jim has a reputation, and you don't normally, you don't, um, people don't get indicted for purely political and corrupt reasons with no factual basis. I mean, we're 5 days out of an indictment, and nobody has articulated. They're leaking all over the place about the status of the investigation, but nobody has articulated what Jim is alleged to have done wrong with any kind of specificity or coherence. And under those circumstances, I expect, again, no inside information about this. I expect the defense to be extremely aggressive in a way that's, more theatrical than, not theatrical in a Trump-like way, but is really meant to make a point that's beyond making sure that Jim is acquitted or the case is dismissed, but is, designed to show that this is not just improper, but some wild impropriety.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. So it has to be by Tuesday, is that right? The 30th.
Tuesday is the 30th, and that will be the 5-year anniversary. So they have
insane. It's just insane.
And remember that not all days are grand jury days. The grand jury doesn't, in no jurisdiction does a grand jury meet every day, right? So I know in the district, we would be talking about today, because Thursday is often a grand jury day in the district. Sometimes it's Monday and Thursday, sometimes it's Thursday. It depends on the grand jury. But I don't know what the local rules are in either Richmond or Norfolk, and I wouldn't want to make something up and just based on analogy to DC.
Doesn't it take some time to sit at grand jury though? You have to
there's usually a grand jury sitting.
I see.
In case something happens and you need one, you have a grand jury.
Okay, right.
And
so they can't even pick and choose. They can't even select a jury. Isn't the grand jury kind of seated for a period of time, not for per case? And so they don't have any. Do they have any way of selecting the grand jury?
No, you're usually dealing with, for routine crimes, or routine
witchcraft.
Like witchcraft. You are dealing, the federal courts will generally have a sitting grand jury that, that a local U.S. attorney or AUSA can walk into, bring a summary witness that gives a summary of the case. You get the grand jury to vote, you're done. It's a depending on the crime, it's a few hours project. Now, any one of these cases could be presented very simply if you're willing to be wildly unethical. So, because Comey testified X, and you have some information that in isolation could be seen to be in tension with X. So you bring one summary witness in to summarize, what the nature of the tension is. You show the grand jury the underlying transcript. Maybe you're done, right?
And there's no defense, is that right?
There's no defense in a grand jury. And there's no general obligation to present all the evidence.
Sure.
So you can get away with something wildly misleading if you want to. Now, as a general matter, federal prosecutors don't do that. Why? Because it's unethical. Why else? Oh, because if you get an indictment, you have to be able to prove it to an actual jury, right? And so it's not that you want to mimic the circumstances of the jury, but I don't want to get an indictment of Holly based on the 3 pieces of evidence that show that she might not have
chameleon, the red
really
cloth,
grown
white
up in
powder.
Kenya, and then actually have to put that evidence on at trial and have her lawyer cross-examine the relevant witnesses and show that they are all, deranged, Holly Berkeley Fletcher conspiracy theorists. So it's really just a matter, it's not a matter of you can't do it. It's a matter of it's unethical, and why would you want to anyway? And the answer is, in this case, you would want to because the goal is to indict Jim Comey, not to, and to thereby satisfy Donald Trump, rather than the goal being to do your job in good faith as a federal prosecutor.
Yeah. Yep. Do they really want to, again, this is in a dream world in which Democrats are back in power. Do they really want to establish, a precedent of like going after every single person that may have, committed perjury before Congress? Or like not even may, but like there's a hint, I mean, a lot of them are in big trouble if that's the case.
Well, I have no problem going after people who committed perjury in
For
Congress.
real, yeah.
And I think there are many people who have sought to mislead Congress, and if we want to have a rule that you testify falsely before Congress at your grave peril and a zero tolerance policy for that, fine. I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah, it's just when there's so
but-
many crimes that have been committed, it's hard
Fine,
to.
you'd need a big task force. You'd need to devote significant prosecutorial resources to that. Honestly, they may be better spent on other things, but I'm actually okay with that as a policy decision. I can promise you
The law is the law.
I can promise you very few things in life. One of them is that Jim did not commit perjury before Congress. I just, I say that based on the record as I've looked at it, and also just based on knowing Jim. That's a separate matter, and I don't expect anybody to take my view of that at face value, but it's just, it's not even a serious question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both. I mean, good character-wise, but also just like he's a very smart attorney and with a lot of experience, and that's just he would not do that. It would just be a boneheaded thing to do.
And also, he has told the truth about things in settings in which it is not necessary for him to have met with the individuals involved, in which the truth was not wholly flattering to him, as in a lot of people are very critical of his handling of the closing of the Clinton email investigation. And he sat for hours with the inspector general after he was out of office. I mean, he didn't have to do that. These are things, if you slip up, you can be charged with a crime. And, he sat with them for hours and created a large record on the basis of which people criticize him. I mean, the guy is just not afraid of the truth, even when the truth is not particularly flattering to him. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not, I am clear-eyed about Jim's faults. I'm not, it's not that I don't think he is above criticism. I don't think that. But I do think that the one thing you can't criticize him for is lying. He just doesn't lie.
Sure. But here's a question. Would he wear a dog shirt?
there's no question he would not wear a dog shirt. But
You haven't had this have you had this conversation?
We've never had this conversation. There are
Have you
people
given him
like
a dog
Pete,
shirt? Maybe he just doesn't own one.
there are people who I would, like Pete Strzok, who I would tease mercilessly and try to get to wear a dog shirt. Jim, I've never even really tried. It never really occurred to me that he's just kind of not the dog shirt type.
Well, maybe he is, and you just don't know him that well.
It's true, and Kate makes an excellent point that this is, Jim is not uptight compared to Mueller, and in fact, Jim, used to go to the FBI cafeteria every day to get a sandwich, and when I first had lunch with him, we went down in the bureau, we went downstairs to get a sandwich and bring it back up to his office. And it was like a huge deal that the director was in the cafeteria. I mean, and the last time I had lunch with him, which was on March 28th, 2017, about a month and 2 weeks before his firing, we walked into the cafeteria and it was not a big deal that the FBI director was in the cafeteria. So I will joke about him not wearing dog shirts, but, he did wear a blue shirt, which was in Mueller's FBI, where you wore a white shirt.
Tan suit.
He would, Jim relaxed the dress code for men quite substantially. And I'm sure the dress code for women it was always a little bit more relaxed, but the male dress code under Mueller was extremely. It was really precise, and there was definitely an effort under Jim which I wrote about at some length in my review of his book, to relax the cult of the director a little bit. Look, he has a complicated legacy for all kinds of reasons, but there is just no doubt. And, we have two people associated with this show. One is Mike Feinberg and the other is Kate, who worked who worked at the Bureau under both Comey and Mueller and can talk about it. There is just no doubt that he made a real contribution at the management and leadership levels that people don't talk about very much because everybody loves to hate Jim Comey and blame him for the things that they don't like about America. All right. We are going to wrap up. Folks, we're going to be back tomorrow. We have a special guest coming. It's going to be fun. I'm excited about it. You're all great Americans, and don't you forget it for a minute. Remember, it is a puppy shirt day.
And a butterfly day.
And a puppies chasing butterflies, and don't you freaking forget it.